Welcome, everyone, to the ADHD podcast. I am Shane Thrapp of Creating Order from Chaos.
And I'm Braden Young of Empower ADHD Solutions.
And today we are actually doing an interview with Brendan Mahan of ADHD Essentials and author of the upcoming book, Overcoming the Wall of Awful. It's going to be coming out in September 2026. Welcome, Brendan.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Man, so I'm super stoked about this. I'm super excited. You and I have worked for years together now, and just having you on our podcast is such a cool thing. I'm totally stoked about this.
Word. All right.
So we're going to be talking about fatherhood. We're going to be talking about your whole childhood and how that influenced everything into it. So
Yeah, not an interview I've done before. So
right, I was like, yes, I get to bring the ground with Brendan. That's totally neat. So
Learn about the Brendan.
so let's jump into this. You've got 17-year-old twins,
Mhm.
and you, as a professional, know what worked and what doesn't. When you think back to your own childhood, like what's something that your dad did and that you're like, yeah, I'm doing that too, or this is what I'm doing right, or this is what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, it's a little tricky, right? I'm going to fall into my parents a lot because I don't necessarily always delineate between the two. But I'll do my best. So overall, right, my parents were great. I had a really good childhood. I had a very supportive family who backed me up in the ways that I needed to be backed up. Each of them taking sort of different roles, right? My mom was the more school person, helping me there with ADHD, although I wasn't diagnosed and we didn't know that was what was going on. My dad was more like social, kind of. So I moved from New Jersey to Massachusetts in the fourth grade, summer between fourth and fifth grade. And my social life fell apart, right? I had to rebuild it for fifth grade. And then a year later, I went to middle school and it had to get rebuilt again because all the kids that I was friends with in fifth grade were not in the same team as me in sixth grade. And that was hard, right? So my dad did stuff to get me involved. He was a coach on the baseball team, which meant I played baseball longer than I wanted to because I didn't want to disappoint my dad when I wanted to quit. And like, we're talking seasons longer than I wanted to play baseball because I was like, well, did my dad likes it, so I'll keep doing it. And I think I quit in like eighth grade. Because I sucked. I was not a good baseball player. I had the best on base percentage of anybody on my team for 2 of the years I played because I was short and had no strike zone and got walked a lot, but I was not a good baseball player. And my dad also, like, when he worked for the government and would get, like, in the winter, it was just, if you go skiing on Friday at this mountain, it counts as going to work. Like, that was one of the perks of the job for a few of the years there. So in middle school, like, I went skiing with my dad once a month or something. And that was good, right? Like, when I didn't have friends in middle school, my dad was my friend. My dad was doing the things that I needed to kind of keep me sane. I had a paper route when I was in middle school. We moved to Chelmsford, and literally the day we moved in, like, it was sort of the first day we were settled, at least. I went out, I was outside in the yard, and some dude pulled into my driveway and was like, "Hey kid, do you want a job?" And I was just like the most horror movie beginning, like, nightmare scenario ever. And I was like, let me ask my mom. Turned out this guy was just looking for someone to deliver papers in the neighborhood because the paper boy who used to deliver those papers had quit. He was delivering the papers. That's why he was driving around my neighborhood.
To be fair,
yeah.
but that's how it was when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Right?
way different than it is now. So
Yeah. So I got a paper route like immediately upon moving into Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and delivered papers until I was old enough to get a real job. So I had money. I had like $40 a week from fifth grade on, right? And then my first job after that was Chuck E. Cheese when I was 16. And so my dad also, like, that, around that time I got into comic books because I had money. So my dad sort of joined me in that, half because he had to drive me there all the time. And then he started buying them too. And we sort of shared that hobby. He always encouraged my writing. So he was the one that listened to all of my flights of fancy and wacky Dungeons and Dragons ideas and comic book ideas and all that stuff. My mom had no idea what to do with that. So he, like, that's the stuff that he did, right? It was social stuff. It was, so even in the paper route, right? Like, it's snowing out and he's driving me around the neighborhood, not making me walk in the snow or in the rain or whatever, like that kind of stuff too. Yeah, so like supportive father, supportive mother, like no real complaints. Like any family, we had our stuff, but we had significantly less stuff than I think a lot of families did. At least it went for me. My sisters had more stuff than I had. There was more stuff when they were younger. And yeah, am I answering your question in a way that's useful?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, honestly, that's totally opposite from my childhood. So it's interesting, like hearing that you went to the comic book shops and the baseball stuff and everything with your dad. But was there anything that you look at that made you think, okay, I want to do that different when I'm a parent?
Yeah, like of course, right? So my mom was a can't say recovered, recovering alcoholic by the time I was born, right? So did not drink as far as I'm aware from the time I was born until I went to college. And then there were some issues once I was in college. But for the whole time I was around and growing up, nothing, none of that alcohol stuff. My sisters went through that, but I didn't. And I should note, I'm 8 and 9 years younger than my two sisters. So they're significantly older than me. They were like, by the time I really remember interacting with them much at all, they were basically out of the house doing high school stuff and then going to college in Massachusetts, and I still lived in New Jersey. And then by the time I'm in high school, I think they'd moved back home because we moved to Massachusetts too, and they were back with us at least in on the summers and stuff. But some of that means that stuff wasn't talked about. Like there's all kinds of stuff that as I got older, I learned about things, but we didn't have those conversations. And there's still stuff that like doesn't really get addressed necessarily as directly as I kind of would like it to be. So some of it is I tend to be more direct about stuff. I tend to have the conversations that need to be had. I think I struggled a lot in school, and I don't know if it was that my parents didn't notice that I was struggling. Like I might have hid it really well because a lot of ADHD kids do. I don't know if it's that parents were not as involved in their kids' lives as they are now, so that might mean they missed it. But there were plenty of times when I needed support and help and I wasn't getting it and some of that I'll put on me, right? I didn't ask for it. I wasn't self-advocating like we encourage kids to do now because I thought I would get in trouble, right? For whatever reason, and I can't point to anything specific that happened. I think it's more cultural than necessarily my family. But for whatever reason, the message I got was if I mess up, I'll get in trouble. So when I mess up, I can't let anybody find out that I messed up because I'll get in trouble, right? Asking for help equals getting in trouble was in my head somehow. And that informs a lot of what I do now and helping parents to not accidentally send that message to their kids. I don't know that my parents did send that message to me. Like that was very much growing up in the 70s and 80s. That was very much the general message culturally. But that somehow I got that message and it took me a while to get out of it.
It's really interesting that you say that because, like, in my situation, and I think Braden kind of has a similar situation, like, I learned that because if I messed up, like, physical violence happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
growing up in the South with my dad, and he was an alcoholic, like, full on, full blown. And, like, I knew. And, like, as I got older and I started kind of, like, trying to delve into my own style as a father and what I wanted to do with my kids and things like that is I never wanted them to have that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting that you had that fear without
Physical
necessarily,
violence.
yeah, without the trauma of the
Yeah.
physical violence.
Yeah.
So
I
that
think it's
just,
cultural as much as anything else. Yeah.
yeah, that's just pervasive. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why Braden and I wanted to do this podcast is to have these kind of conversations because, like, not all behaviors are rooted in trauma.
Right.
We have to talk about the cultural, the social, things of that nature and things along those lines.
And also just that's dumb, right? Like that's such a terrible message. It doesn't work. It's not a good message because it all it does is make kids lie and hide the problems. And that leads to worse stuff, right? If we can talk about the problems when they're small, we can address them when they're small. But if the small problems get hidden, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's a big problem. And now all of us are going to have more trouble regulating our emotions and addressing this in a way that's balanced and
So interestingly, you talk about kids lying and things like that. And it reminds me like one of the lessons I actually learned from my mom was she told me stories about like when she'd get in trouble when she was younger, it would be old fashioned. Grandpa would bring out the belt and blah, 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 blah. And she's like, so I just got a lot better at lying.
Hmm.
And so that was like, she was open with that story and a lot of things with me. And so that kind of became my thing is, okay, well, I guess I just need to get really good at lying to my parents. And that's not really something that we want our kids to do, but it's also at the time, and I think I realized this when you taught it to me, Brendan, was that when our kids lie to us, it's not necessarily because they're just trying to get out, it's because they want us to be proud of them. And
Hmm.
that's what I realized, like, oh geez, I'm doing this because I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Yeah,
So
and I don't even think we have to go all the way to they want us to be proud of them. I think it's just they want us to think well of them. They want us to care about them. And there's real fear that if I screw up and you find out about it, you're not going to like me anymore. Right? Like that's there. And that kind of plays with a core tenet of me as a parent and as the parent with the parenting stuff that I teach with the parent groups and all that stuff, right? Like my most of my philosophy boils down to a single fear that I don't really think I need to be afraid of anymore because my kids are 17 and I basically know where they're heading. But it boils down to I know my mom was an alcoholic. I know addiction runs in that side of the family. There are other members of that side of the family that have had some stuff. The last thing I wanted to do was set my kids up where if they did something wrong and came to me, it was scary. I wanted that to always feel safe and okay because I didn't want them to go somewhere when they became teenagers and have someone offer them this thing that they try and then life is altered, right? I didn't want that to happen. And if it did happen, I wanted them to tell me immediately, right? Like I wanted them to know, "Hey dad, I tried some vodka at a party," or "Hey dad, this kid gave me this pill," right? Like I wanted them to be in a position where we're going to have that conversation. "Hey dad, I tried this thing and it's got a hold on me that I don't know what to do about." Because the longer those conversations don't happen, the worse that problem gets. It's no different than grades, right? If my kid fails a test, doesn't turn in an assignment, and we're on top of that, now you don't fail the class. But if I don't know that you've bombed a test and missed a couple assignments, I'm surprised when you fail at the end of the term, right? Same idea.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you and I have had a lot of conversations about things that like how do we get our kids to trust us? How do we get our kids to open up and be,
Mm-hmm.
able to have those conversations? And of course, I'm a like ADHD autistic and I'm like explicit language, especially for our kids who may have ADHD or autism, like legitimately if you feel like your kid is like hiding or feeling like they need to hide those things or anything in that realm, it's just like explicitly like, hey look, I want to work with you, I want you to trust me that I'm able to be there for you, and like explicitly giving them permission to trust you and then not violating that trust.
Mm-hmm. The best way to get our kids to trust us is to stay balanced as much as possible, right? Like just be regulated, even when stuff is hard, even when they come to you with problems. And you're not always going to succeed at that. Like one of the things I've noticed with Gavin is he has seen me get dysregulated by technology problems too much. So as soon as there's a technology thing that he has to do, he gets really stressed and dysregulated by it. And that's my fault, right? But it's also because most of him seeing that was during COVID or during his brother's OCD season. And like all of us were at a 9 for most of that time. So any extra little thing like getting a new phone was really intense because it was moving us from a 9 to a 10. But I've taught him that. So now I have to, now that I know that, I have to unteach it, right? I have to help him get over that. But that's all part of trust, right? Like I own my mistakes when I make them. I don't overreact when they have challenges and issues. And if I do, I apologize and I own my mistake again, and that builds trust. And also, if you treat them like they are trustworthy, they will be more trustworthy and they will also trust you more. And when bad stuff has to happen or is there, you just got to tell them about it and be straight with them.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that actually, that whole conversation kind of leads naturally into one of the questions that we kind of came up with was, you've got a philosophy. You cause a problem, we solve the problem, we move on.
Hmm.
Give
Yeah.
us a real example of what that looks like.
And I don't even necessarily mean cause a problem, right? If there's a problem, right? Something goes wrong. Cool. It's just a problem to solve. Doesn't matter what it is. It's just a problem to solve. Some problems take longer to solve than others, but it's just a problem to solve, man. One way where this paid off, I'll try to think of a situation where there actually was a problem that had to be dealt with. But Gavin, this is middle school. He got it was the midterms. I think he got like a D or something. He got this is like an A kid. A D is a surprise. And but it was also when we had a lot of eighth grade was hard. This happened in eighth grade. Seventh grade and eighth grade were really hard in my house. And there's a lot of mental health stuff. That was OCD land and then recovering from OCD land. And he sees the grade and we're like if in my family, that would have been a hard conversation with explosions. Like my dad would yell and slap the table and stuff like that. I remember like, what's wrong? What are you doing? Right. Like very blaming in that way, which is what I try not to do. But that's what he knew, right? That's what he saw when he was growing up. And we were just like, what do you think? Right. And even Amy, like it took her a while to come around to my lens on this because she grew up in the same kind of house that I grew up in. And it's like, if you get bad grades, you get in trouble. That's how that works. And I'm like, nope, it's just a thing to figure out. And so we said to him, like, well, what do you think? What do we need to do? Because Nate would bomb Spanish and we got him a Spanish tutor, right? Like that's how we solved that problem. And we're like, what do you think? And he goes, I think I just needed to see it. Like, all right, you got this figured out? He's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. If that's not the case, tell me. Like, well, and we'll come up with another solution. But if this is a situation where all you needed to do was get caught up on the fact that you dropped the ball, dope, tally ho, right? And sure enough, he was back to getting good grades for the rest of the semester and the rest of the year. He's got a 4.2 as a high school junior. So
That's awesome.
yeah, right. Nate's a 3.6, Gavin's a 4.2. So go them.
So, like, you've been working with kids for a significant amount of time, and like your whole
Since I was 14, if
right.
not younger. Yeah, maybe 12.
Like as you've gone through life and working with kids and everything, and you brought it up because Amy grew up in a similar household. How is your work with kids and the work that you did as a teacher and things of that nature, how has that influenced how you parent?
Some of it is that problem to solve stuff, right? If I'm teaching English and a kid's failing my class, I can't just yell at them and magically expect them to do a better job on essays. You know, like I have to solve it. It's my whole job is to teach that kid how to write a better essay. How do I solve this problem? So some of it's just that, just teaching. Everything I do is teaching. So my parenting is teaching as much as parenting, right? When there's a when anybody isn't doing stuff at the level that we need them to do it, I'm like, yeah, it's a problem to solve, right? There's a skill set that's missing, there's resources that's missing. But some of it too is like I'm comfortable with any age kid, which helped as a dad. Because when I was 12-ish, maybe even younger, I have a bunch of younger cousins. So like my mom's mom, there's like 20 something cousins on that side of the family, on my mom's side. So when I was younger, like I was, hey, Brendan, hang out with the toddlers, you know, because like I'm entertaining and engaging and I have ADHD, which wasn't what we knew at the time, but like we knew I was good at hanging out and playing with toddlers and keeping them entertained. So I did that, right? And then in high school, I was in child development. I took that sophomore year and no, junior year? No, sophomore year, junior year, and then senior year. Where the sophomore year was just a class about child development. I learned about the Future Teachers Program of America. Then it was a pilot program in my high school that only seniors were allowed into, but a senior dropped out midway through the year, and I was the only one who expressed interest in it. So they were like, Brendan, oh, sophomore, go ahead. So I ended up doing that for like 3 years. And junior year, I worked in the preschool as part of that class. I worked in the preschool in my high school. So even then, I'm hanging out with preschool kids. And then in college, I started working at after school programs and summer camps. And now I'm creeping into elementary school and middle school experiences with like working with those kids. Then I went back to school and got a post-bac in elementary education that isn't even on my resume. And then I got a master's in middle school education, middle school humanities, so English and history, and taught fifth grade and sixth grade for most of my time as a teacher. Then I went and got another master's degree in school counseling and worked with middle school primarily, but some high school too. And then I was a special education teacher at the high school level, and I ended up doing counseling work with DCF families. So, like, I've worked with kids in a lot of different angles, and all of that informs my parenting because I've seen kids from so many different lenses. And even when our kids have an issue or a challenge, and Amy's like, oh, I don't know, this seems like a big deal. I'm like, this is nothing. Like, I've seen worse. Like, right. The OCD stuff was intense. That was much, much harder. That was not nothing. But even when that stuff started and it was an early crisis stuff with that, I felt like I knew how to handle it. And I'm glad that I was comfortable in that situation because it meant we didn't jump to more intense options early, like residential treatment programs, before we knew what was up, because that doesn't always work. It's not, if, at least for OCD, it doesn't always work if you take the OCD kid and put him in a general residential treatment program for mental health. It doesn't always pay off. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And that was my whole point. I was like, we don't really know what's going on yet. I'm going to wait and see how long I can stall to figure out what's going on so that we can get the specialized treatment we need as opposed to generalized treatment that may or may not work. And that ended up paying off because we did have time to figure it out.
So, and you kind of already touched on this with what you were just talking about, but does all of your knowledge and working with kids from being very young and then later on with all your experience and everything, how has that helped you with your expectations of like your kids' capabilities? I mean, and you spoke about it like a little bit with the OCD and like you knew not to jump right into the residential programs and stuff like that. But how else has it affected your expectations with your kids?
I think the thing that affected my expectations with my kids most significantly is that they are identical twins. Because when you guys both know this, when you have kids, some part of your brain is like, this kid is going to be fill in the blank, right? You immediately imagine that this kid's life and all the stuff that are like a justice on the Supreme Court or whatever. And my brain cracked when it tried to do that. My brain was like, this kid's going to be wait, there's two of them. And that doesn't make sense. Like
I had the same problem.
That's not a thing.
Like,
yeah.
I had both of my son and my daughter are twins, and I'm just like, whoa, there's two of them. I'd get my head wrapped around. I'm 39 years old. I'm going to have another child.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. My wife's 40 years old. She's going to have a child. And then I remember like getting the ultrasound, and there's two of them. And we were like, the F you say? What? And I remember my wife cursing. Like,
That's
what?
what Amy
And
did.
like my whole brain, I know exactly what you mean.
Well, and yours are at least a boy and a girl, right? So you can be like, I don't know, she's going to be a model and he's going to be a high-powered executive or whatever, right?
Yeah, no.
For me, it's the same kid. Like they're identical twins. So I can't even like do a gender-based thing, right? I'm just like, I don't know. So that obliterated any expectations. I just didn't have any. I was just like, I don't know, they're going to be whoever they're going to be, which is how I wanted to go into parenting anyway, but it sort of reinforced that. And then the expectations become smaller. It becomes, are you doing the best you can? Are you a good kid? Are you respectful? Are you including other people? Are you like talking to me about the stuff that you need to talk to me about? Do we have a good relationship? That sort of stuff. And that's the stuff that builds to a good life. And then I'm like ADHD coach, and I'm like, oh, it turns out that's the better way to go anyway, right? So I think that's how it played out, right? It is as much about, are you doing it the way you should be doing it, as opposed to, are you doing what you should do?
So, with them being siblings and twins, like, have you had to deal with like a lot of sibling rivalry or any issues like that?
Nope. They are best friends.
Really? Even as like
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah, the whole time. Like, I mean, they bug each other here and there, right? Nate drives Gavin bananas a little bit. Gavin is more likely to express that he is being driven crazy by Nate than Nate is going to express that he is being driven crazy by Gavin. And some of that I think is like Nate's got OCD and Gavin's a little autistic. So like the autism doesn't have as much patience for Nate's foibles. And that's okay, right? But they love each other and they hang out all the time, right? It's not uncommon to find my two 17-year-old sons crashed out on one of their beds watching a YouTube video, right? They're just buds. And they don't spend all their time together. They do different things. They have different interests in school. A lot of the stuff they do is the same activity. They're both in the Excelsior Club. They're both in Improv Club. They both take tempo together. But Gavin is the president of the film club, and Nate's not even in the film club. Nate helps run like a teen anxiety program at a therapeutic farm that they volunteer at. Gavin doesn't do that part of it. He volunteers at the farm because they both love animals, but he doesn't do the teen anxiety group when it comes around. So yeah, they're just buds. And it makes their social lives tricky. Because when they send a text to their text group, to their group people saying, hey, does anybody want to come over? This seems to be finally fading. But for a while, the first few years of high school, like no one bit when they were like, does anyone want to do something? Because if you're standing in the hallway of school and everyone is blindfolded and can't read nonverbals, right? And the two best friends are like, hey, does anybody want to hang out with us? If you say yes, you're the third wheel, right? But if someone else says yes, now you might go because there's four people and that's not as uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So when they send a text, everybody is running the risk of being that third wheel if no one else jumps. And so I think for a while there, no one jumped. And then a few kids would jump and hang out with them on their own. And word must have gotten around that it's not weird to hang out with Nathan and Gavin as a third person. So it goes. That is not a thing anymore. But yeah, I'm really proud of my kids. They've grown up to be great, just great young men. And they had a friend who was in a residential treatment program. And kind of at the drop of a hat, they went to go see them. Like went to hopped in a car with that person's dad and like drove for an hour to go visit their friend who was in treatment and then eat chicken nuggets for a few hours and then came home, right? Like I don't think there's a lot of kids that would do that. And some of it is like they both know what that's like. Gavin visited Nate when he was in a residential treatment program and Nate's been in one. So that part wasn't scary to them. But it's still like a pretty cool and generous of spirit thing for them to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of adults that wouldn't do that, much less questions and everything. So that is definitely something to be proud of. I was curious when it came to the social dynamics, because I know this is something that I'm going to have to deal with our son. Did you help them address that, or did you just distance yourself from that a little bit?
I just told them. I figured that out 2 years ago. I was talking to Dr. B at the ADHD conference and like figured it out. Like it just entered into my head. I was like, oh, that's why. And as soon as I got back from the ADHD conference, I was like, guys, I think I figured it out. And they were like, oh, okay. And so they changed how they did stuff, right? They would, they would send a text to everybody, but they would also send individual texts and that kind of stuff and try to break it down in a new way. And it's working out. So
in my head, when I'm thinking about identical twins, and that, like especially in your description of them, like all I can see or imagine is them like finishing each other's sentences and being like those kind of identical
they're not.
twins.
They're not at all. No.
Totally understand that. It's just in my head, I'm just like it stereotypes. That's why they exist, right?
They can they'll be brushing their teeth and have a whole conversation, like with toothbrushes and toothpaste in their mouth. I don't know how they understand each other, but they do. And like one of them will say something to me and I'm like, I don't have any idea. And if the other one isn't brushing their teeth, they'll be like, it's this. Sure. Okay. I don't know how, because that's just mumbles and bubbles is all I can tell, but sure. Yeah. But like Nate's the introvert, Gavin's the extrovert.
Okay.
You know, Nate's more ADHD, Gavin's more autism. They both have OCD. Nate's more intense with the OCD. Gavin's got a lighter touch of it. And it's different.
So how do you navigate all of that? Like that, I mean, you kind of touched on a bunch of it in the different things, but you're dealing with a lot of different neurodivergence in your household and yours. How do you navigate that and keep everything, relatively not at the 9 as it was, but lower down?
Yeah, well, it's probably more like a 7 or 8 most of the time. But like some of it is I came with a lot of skills that most parents don't have, right? Like everything from knowing how to get, I know how to navigate a field trip. I know how to run games on a sports field. I know how to run a summer camp. I know how to teach a class how to write and how to read and how to do math if I need to. Like, I know how to manage a classroom. I know how to talk to a kid when they're struggling and help them feel better. I know how to talk to a kid when we're in conflict and reduce that conflict. I know how to take a kid off to the side and connect with them one on one. I know how to connect to a group. Like, that's not a skill set that most men are bringing to the table. Most women aren't bringing that skill set to the table. And then on top of that, I ended up getting a degree in counseling. It was school counseling, but still counseling. So like, and then I worked as a counselor. So some of it, like a counselor, some of it is just, I have a unique skill set professionally. And a lot of it is my wife is amazing. Like I can't say enough good things about Amy. She kept us together. If we had gone, so just really quick, Nate has obsessive compulsive disorder. It's the emotional contagion kind, which is sort of like you're afraid of germs, only take germs out and plug something else in. In his case, it's his elementary school. we. So anything that has touched his elementary school becomes contaminated and then can contaminate other stuff. For a while there, he wouldn't sit on the couch in our living room because a towel from his elementary school ended up on that couch. So like now he won't sit on the couch. Wouldn't eat dinner at the kitchen table because he did homework at the kitchen table, right? That kind of stuff. Had trouble walking on the streets because buses drive on the streets. Really, really overwhelmingly difficult. Shut our family down. Like covered in chemical burns from soap from cleaning himself so much. Like really hard. And we're trying to figure out how to navigate that. And I don't know. I did it wrong because most of the ADHD stuff is like, well, why are you doing it the hard way? Like just do it the easy way. But when anxiety is in the mix, if you start doing it the easy way, the anxiety goes, oh, that's because you can't handle that other way. And it gets bigger, right? It eliminates that as a choice. And then it starts looking at the easy way and goes, I don't think you can do it the easy way either. I think you should let me protect you and not do it the easy way either. Right? Like that's how anxiety works. So my initial instincts were all wrong and I did it wrong. And then we had to fix it and we did. But it got so bad that he ended up in a residential treatment program, McLean Hospital, for 3 months, summer after 8th grade into summer after 7th grade into October of 8th grade. And then he came home and was doing better. And then Gavin was like, hey, all that trauma that I went through and didn't face because it was all about Nate. Well, now I'm going to have some struggles. So then he had some struggles. And at the same time, my dad was sick. So then it was like I was squished, right? And through all of that, like I'm not going to pretend Amy and I didn't have a conflict. Of course we did. Like it was just stressed and hard all the time. And that affected our connection. But like my business almost closed. Like I almost shut my business down. There's a reason my podcast is a mess. That thing definitely had to give it up. I had to give pieces up. And if Amy wasn't bringing in the money, if she didn't have her job that makes enough for us to pay the mortgage and survive, it would have been that much worse, right? There would have been that much more stress and pressure because there would have been financial pressure on top of all of this family stuff. And that wasn't there. And thankfully, I had the kind of job that I could mess with. I could say, like, all right, well, COVID is going to be a horrible nightmare because my kid can't handle school coming home, but I can homeschool him for 6th grade and we can kick the can for a year and assume that there's going to be vaccinations and we're going to get him back into the classroom for 7th grade and all this kind of stuff, which is how it worked out. But that meant I had to shove all my clients to the early morning and late afternoon so I could homeschool them in the middle of the day. And I was doing like 12-hour days and then posting the podcast on Saturdays, like editing and posting it in like 8-hour bursts and stuff. Like it was brutal. And eventually I burned out, but I didn't burn out until everybody was better. Like then I could. One of the things I would say during that time was like, I keep reaching the end of the rope. Like I reach the end of my rope and then I just will more rope into existence because I have to. Like, what are you going to do? So yeah, some of it was just that. It just had to go. And I did it wrong. I yelled at Nate more than I've ever yelled at anybody. And that is not who I am. Like there's not a lot of yelling that I've done, but I was at my limit. And then one day I was just like, I'm doing this wrong. And I said to him, I sort of took a break and ran through my parent group coaching slides and was like, everyone's doing the best they can. Everybody wants to do well. Everybody wants to be included. I am not starting from that place. I'm starting from, Nate, why can't you? Right. And so I went back and I was like, I am not doing this right. And I'm sorry. I know that you're trying your best. I know that you want to do well. And I've been stuck because 6 months ago, the stuff that I'm asking you to do would have been easy. And now you can't do it. And I just wasn't seeing it the right way. And that's my fault, not your fault. And I'm going to do better. And we have not banged heads since. And it's been years, right? Like, but there was a brief, I don't know, 2 month window where it was pretty hard. Month or 2 months. It feels longer, but I don't think it is. And yeah, like and that it brought up trauma for me. Like I dated a girl who was anorexic when I was in high school. And Nate wouldn't eat lunch in 8th grade, in 7th grade, and like was coming home getting skinnier and smaller. And like, then I find out he's not eating and all of that. Now I'm like, I'm this overwhelmed junior in high school trying to figure out how to get his girlfriend to eat, you know?
It's hard when you have those memories come up of some form of trauma and you're like, oh God, I didn't deal with the thing then. Now how am I going to deal with this with my own kid?
And knowing what it was helped. Like the fact that I could go, oh, this is why that's hitting me so hard was useful because it gave me some level of agency and control over it.
Yeah, yeah. So given all that you went through and the struggles and everything, what would be the advice that you would give to parents, like to avoid getting to that place where you're butting heads so much? I mean, I know some of it's unavoidable, but
Some of it some of it is just like communicate openly and clearly, right? That matters. Assume good intentions, assume they want to do well, assume it's a skill set that's missing and not defiance. As soon as we start assuming it's defiance, it's over. Like you took a wrong turn. Like talk to your spouse, communicate with your spouse. And if you don't agree, then you still need to pick, right? Like Amy and I had a moment where she was like, I see that you think you know the way to do this and I don't agree with you. So I'm going to back off and let you do this. And if you decide you want to change course, that's okay. But I'm going to just let you take point on this. And so I took point on it, right? For better or worse. Because she wanted to just hard stop all the OCD stuff and just totally oppose everything. And I was like, I think we lose our kid if we do that. I think he hates us forever because we don't have the right stuff in place yet to do it that way. So I think we have to be gentler. And my approach was kind of like let him do it once and make it clear, right? Like this is an OCD thing and I'm going to let you do it, but I'm not going to let you do it again, right? Like wherever the OCD is right now is where it's staying. And if it tries to get you to creep over a boundary, like we might let you do it, but then that boundary stays where it was. It's not going to change, right? So we're going to go back to where it was before, not stay where it is now. And it ended up working out okay, but that was a brutal time. It was brutal for me and Amy and me and Nathan and me and Gavin and Gavin and Amy and Gavin and Nathan and Amy and like the whole way around. But it's communication, it's understanding, it's letting people take their shot if need be, and then also caring and loving each other, right? Like we still watch TV most nights together. And that was one of the things we did to connect somehow, right? Like just when we couldn't eat, it started because we couldn't eat dinner at the kitchen table because Nate wouldn't sit at the kitchen table. So we ended up in the living room watching TV and eating dinner together. And then eventually we literally bought a new kitchen table so that we could have dinner at the kitchen table and use our kitchen table. And we bought a new couch too. Both things that we probably should not have done for our OCD kid. But it was early days and terrible. And it got so much worse. We thought it was as bad as it could get, and it got way worse. He was taking 3-hour-long showers. And like it was focusing on connection and paying attention to connection. And when things are good, let them be good, right? We don't have to punish but things were bad before. And trust your kid. even when it's hard, even when it's a nightmare, even like don't trust their mental illness, right? Like I trust Nate, I don't trust Nate's OCD. And luckily Nate doesn't trust Nate's OCD. So now we're in better shape. Now there's times when we have little flare-ups and things and something wanders into the house from that's connected to Coolidge, his elementary school, and he's like, I don't like it. And we just handle it. But trusting him that he knows how to manage his OCD, and he's 17. Admittedly, we're not talking about a 12-year-old, but trusting that, but that's when it started. But trusting that he knows what to do with it means that we are better off. Things can go more smoothly. And the other thing is like, and I can't say this enough for parents, it's not about fifth grade. It's not about seventh grade. It's not about being 8. It's about raising a healthy, well-adjusted 26-year-old. You have so much time. Your kid is going to be okay. And my evidence is you're listening to this podcast. You care. You're trying to figure it out. It's going to be okay. And it's hard because it's hard, right? Like I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you'll get there.
All right. I'm going to wrap that one up. So tell everybody where they can find you and what you're doing.
Yeah. So it's Brendan Mahan. Just about everything is ADHD Essentials. So Twitter, sort of Blue Sky, Facebook, Threads. The website is ADHDessentials.com. The podcast is ADHD Essentials. The name of the book is Overcoming the Wall of Awful. It's available on all your online retailers right now for pre-order. The cover is getting changed a little bit. So if you go to Amazon to look for it, it might not have a picture right now because they're putting a new cover up, just in case it looks like it's a fake book because there's no picture. I don't know where that'll be when you go. Maybe there'll be a picture there. But yeah, that's it. Brendan at ADHDessentials.com if you want to email me for some reason.
This has been really great, Brendan. Thank you for coming on and talking to us. And yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, click all the things, and we'll see you all next time.